Hi, I'm Billy White, your virtual piano teacher. In today's video for intermediate to advanced pianists, we're going to look at 3 ways to make your chord voicings stand out from the average pianist. You might be surprised, but little tweaks in your voicings can have a huge effect on the overall feeling of the music, the vibe of the band, and even of the environment where the music is happening. We're going to take a look at 3 techniques that are going to make your voicing sound way more interesting, hip, and modern while still supporting everything else that's going on around you. Now, before we begin, make sure that your device is near your piano so you can hear me, and also so you can pause me whenever you need to. In fact, while you're getting set up, you can do that right now, and I'll be here waiting when you come back. Ready to go? All right, here we go.
Hello everyone. Let's talk a little bit about voicings today, because that's one of the most important ways that you can distinguish your voice on the piano. I'm going to assume that you're already familiar with the Bill Evans voicings, even though I don't know why they're called that, because he didn't invent them. Those are also called drop 3 and drop 7. The 3 techniques we're going to talk about just briefly as an overview. Maybe I'll do an in-depth video on one or more of them if requested. We're going to look at upper structures, clusters, and extensions and alterations. So, let's start with upper structures. The idea of an upper structure is that on top of a standard voicing, you place a structure, usually 1-5-1 is the most common, and that lets you really punch through, thicken the chord, and reinforce some harmonics which make it interesting. By the way, I recommend learning about the overtone series if you want to know the real roots of sound and music. It doesn't sound great over the root. Actually it does if you use a 6th chord. Not if you use a 7, major 7, because you get this kind of ugly rub. But if you use a 6, it works. If you want to hear some examples of this, Herbie Hancock on 7 Steps to Heaven uses this a lot. So 1-5-1 is common. You can of course go 5-1-5. Now we've got 9-5-9, which is a little less usual, but still sounds fine. This would be 5-9-5. So those are just some examples of upper structure. You can move them a little bit, not a lot. For example, but they really work great for comping, especially if you're sparse. They really are a great way to cut through, make a statement in support, but don't use them too much because they are very thick chords and are rich in harmonics, so they take up a lot of space. Let's talk a little bit about clusters. The idea with clusters is that you have some notes, usually 3 or more, but sometimes just 2, which are separated only by a step. And we should also just say something about extensions because we're going to start using them. Basically, if you see 7th or minor 7th or major 7th, you can assume that a 9th is implied, pretty much. Unless you're playing some, pre-1940s music, 9th is fine to include. And over a dominant 7th, you can include the 13th, pretty much without worry. So what you can do now is include those extensions inside the chord instead of as an extension on top of it. Also, I should mention, we can sometimes interpret a minor 7th as a minor 11th. That's a fairly new phenomenon, and we have Robert Glasper to thank, I think, for a lot of it, and also for this general cluster idiom. He's a big proponent, champion of that. Here's an example of what a minor 7th, 11th cluster voicing would look like. It's a very gospel sound, R&B sound, neo-soul. nothing really here that's crazy. You've got your ninth, third, fifth, seventh, but somehow that 11th in there really thickens it up. Again, if you look into why, it's the overtone series. But again, we're not going to get into the physics of it too much here. How about for the 7th we do, again we're making 11th, that's a little bit risky, so you can move it down there, and you can use suspensions in case you hit something you don't like. That is a nice little trap door. Here we are. Again, it's not crazy, it's just the voicing makes it kind of sound newer. We're going to talk about the role of this note in a second. There's our minor in 11th. That's a little much, I think. But it can work if you thin out the bottom a little bit. And once you get the hang of it, you can really start to open it up and create mini clusters. And this is where you can really get a unique sound. So you get an idea. Next, let's talk about alterations. So the idea of an alteration is just that you take one of the notes in the voicing and you either raise or lower it by a half step. And doing so is going to increase the amount of dissonance in your chord. The earliest common example was the major 7 sharp 11, which popped up in the 40s. Bud Powell used it all the time in El Poco Loco. You can also use that sharp 11 over a dominant chord, which also was definitely popular in the 40s in the bop era. So that's one example of an alteration, sharp 11. Now you might be asking, okay, well you can use the sharp 11 over the major and over the dominant, but what about the minor? And the answer is technically no, but yeah, you can. It's just called something else. So over a minor, we're going to change that 5 into a flat 5. It's called a flat 5. Now I guess one thing that makes this different is that with the major and the dominant, you can think of it as sort of an additive process. So we've got both here, and that's fine. And the dominant and our sharp 11, and they're fine next to each other. But with the minor 7th, it does not work out so well. You kind of have to change both. And you're actually changing the quality of the chord now from minor 7th into half diminished 7th. So that might be the reason why. Again. Now, usually the flat 5 is followed by the flat 9 in the dominant chord. You can just basically leave that note there. They kind of go together like peas and carrots. It'd be pretty unusual to hear just this. The flat 9 can be used on its own. And that does characterize a certain era of Tin Pan Alley, I guess around the As Time Goes By era. Let's talk now about the last alteration we're going to talk about, which is the flat 6th. And this is slightly more advanced. Here's my minor 11th. And there's my flat 6. It has this nice voice leading to the 9th. And here it is again. One last time. So, the cool thing is that these tricks can be mixed and matched. Upper structures, clusters, and alterations. Although clusters is a little bit harder to work in, but not impossible. So here is, for example, a clustered minor 11th, going to a flat 6th, a little cluster here, with a sharp 11. Flat 9. Let's use the flat 5. Kind of a cluster action here. Let's use a flat 6th and a sharp 11. Check that out. That's actually really better understood as E flat major over A7, but we're not going to go into polytonality today, even though we're kind of already using it. That's some cool clusters there. Anyways, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you have any feedback or you'd like to see something else. Thanks. Adios.